Look, I'm going to talk about something that affects every single person in this country, and almost nobody thinks about it. Food. Not restaurants, not grocery prices, the actual system that feeds 340 million people every single day. This is a $5 trillion operation. It has to work. Rain or shine, labor shortage or not, price swings, droughts, whatever, it has to work. And right now, it's under more pressure than most people realize. Here's what's actually happening. Farm input costs are still elevated from the post-2020 spike. Water in key growing regions is being depleted 10 times faster than it gets replenished. 10 times. There are labor shortages in crops you can't automate. The average farmer in America is 58 years old. And in 2024, for the first time, the U.S. flipped from a net exporter of food to a net importer. $32 billion deficit. Food still shows up on shelves. It still shows up at restaurants. But the system is absorbing way more cost to deliver the same outcome. That's not sustainable. That's a warning sign. Most people only see agriculture through one lens, the price tag. What does milk cost? What does beef cost? But that price is the final output of a much larger machine, and the forces that actually shape that price operate upstream, where food production looks less like farming and more like infrastructure. Physical limits shape what gets grown. Economic incentives shape who survives. Policy shapes how stress moves through the system. That's it. Those three forces define everything. The system we have today didn't appear out of nowhere. It formed through 4 waves of change. Each wave solved a problem. Each wave created new ones. This is important to understand because those trade-offs compound over time. Wave 1 was mechanization. Tractors replaced animals. Scale became economically decisive. Output per worker went through the roof. But small farms couldn't justify the capital cost, so they got absorbed or they disappeared. Millions of people left the land. Consolidation wasn't some conspiracy, it was math. Wave 2 was the chemical revolution. Synthetic fertilizer, pesticides, irrigation, output per acre exploded. But now production depends on energy, water, and chemical inputs. You can't go back. The dependency is baked in. Wave 3 was consolidation of everything else. Processing, cold storage, logistics, national retail chains. Distribution scaled. But market concentration increased across the entire supply chain. Fewer players, more leverage, more fragility. Wave 4 is happening now. Data, sensors, automation, gene editing, efficiency gains at the margin. But scaling is limited by regulatory ambiguity, adoption costs, and the friction of integrating new tech with legacy systems. It's not a silver bullet. Nothing ever is. So now all 4 waves are colliding with a set of converging constraints. Some are obvious, like labor and water. Some are less visible. Subsidies stabilize output, but they concentrate risk and create dependencies. Trade flows now matter as much as domestic production. Demand is shifting in ways the supply side wasn't built to handle. Land consolidation is changing incentives faster than technology is changing yields. None of these pressures operate alone. They interact, they compound. And together, they determine where food gets produced, how production is organized, and how the system responds when something breaks. That's the backdrop for the deep dive I put together. I traced how value, risk, and control move from inputs to farms to processors to retailers. I connected the historical waves to today's pressure points. I tried to show how decisions made upstream shape outcomes that appear much later, often in ways people don't expect. The report is organized around a few simple questions. How does current agriculture actually work? Where does each food dollar go across the supply chain? What challenges does U.S. agriculture face? What explains the shift toward imports? Where is the innovation and competitive edge? It was fascinating to research. This is a system that operates almost entirely out of sight while affecting everyone in America. Every single day. I hope you find it as interesting as I did. Thanks for listening. This is an adaptation from Chamath Palihapitiya's essay, Who Controls the American Food Supply? To read the complete post, check out Chamath's Substack at chamath.substack.com.